Hello, kia ora everyone, and welcome to the first webinar of the Creative Journeys Design Academy series, powered by Squarespace and Design Assembly. My name is Jess. I'm part of the Design Assembly team, and thank you guys so much for joining us today. Now, if you are not familiar with the Creative Journeys series, this is a series of free and in-person online events taking place across Aotearoa, New Zealand. And at each of these events, we hear from a different designer or a local agency who share with us some tactical design tips and business knowledge. So far this year, we've brought the series to Aotearoa and Poniki, and we've got a few more events coming up, both online and in person, which I'll share more about at the end of today's session. So before I go ahead and introduce our speaker today, I'm just going to do a little bit of housekeeping. Now, if you have any questions come up during the series or during the presentation today, you can drop them into the Q&A box at any point. To find that, if you look down in the bottom right-hand corner, there's 9 dots. So if you click on that, that should take you to the Q&A box where you can drop your questions. Following Sarah Jane's presentation, we're going to do a little Q&A session at the end. So we really encourage you to pop your questions in there. And stick around for the very end, because following the Q&A session, we're going to be going through what's coming up next, and also we'll be sharing a discount code with you all. Do not worry about madly scribbling down notes today, because this webinar is recorded, and we're going to be sending out a link later on so you guys can rewatch this webinar and take away your learnings from that. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I am going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to invite the lovely Sarah Jane to go ahead and turn on her speaker and mic, and she is going to go ahead with today's presentation.
Okay. Hello. Hi, everybody. I am very excited to be here talking to you guys today. This isn't usually my sort of thing. I'm usually a behind the scenes kind of girl. So yeah, presenting, it's very exciting, but very new for me. I've got a big note in front of me that says slow down. So every so often I'll try and look at that and slow down for you guys. So let's try get into this, I guess. My name is Sarah Jane. I'm a creative from Aotearoa. I have worked in the design industry for over 10 years. Before that, I studied a Bachelor of Visual Communication Design. After I graduated, I worked for agencies, in-house teams. I freelanced, I worked in media, and I co-owned a social media agency. We ran that for about 5 years, alongside also me doing my freelance stuff. About 5 years ago, we closed the social project down, and I went kind of full force into doing what I'm doing now, which is mainly branding, strategy, websites, and photography. But I also, if it happens to work, I do packaging and other design elements as well for my clients. So yeah, it's just me. I work from my little home studio that I'm in at the moment. And usually it's just me and my dog, Cookie, who is behind me. I don't know if you can see her. I'm hoping that she behaves throughout the presentation. We'll see how we go. So today we are going to talk about how to build a strategic brand identity, how to develop a visual language that extends beyond just a logo, how to translate those brand guidelines that we create into a website, why Squarespace is the perfect platform for designers, and how you can offer a full service branding and web design package to your clients. So I guess we'll just start with what is strategic brand identity? For me, brand strategy sits at the crossroads of business, marketing, branding, and design thinking. At its heart, it is the blueprint for how a brand connects with its audience. A strong brand strategy helps you to understand who you are, who you want to reach, how people perceive you, and how you would like to be seen. Branding is all about shaping the perception, using strategy to bridge the gap between where you are now and where you want to be. So to expand on that a little bit, brand strategy is really just where we start when we're starting branding. It is where it's the base. For my clients, I like to always start with a brand strategy to not only so I know their brand inside out, but also so they know their brand inside out, because I have found with a lot of clients who are building a new business, it is that they don't actually know what they want. You'd be surprised the amount of people who come and they go, I don't know, like, I don't know what my tone of voice is. I don't know who my target audience is. I don't know what my mission is. So my goal when I'm first starting with any brand is to completely understand their business and for them to completely understand their business as well. So the tips for getting clarity before you design anything is I always start off with a whole lot of questions, which I'm going to share later, which are I have a client portal. And in there, this is where these questions live. They can answer the questions if they can, and then we go on to having a strategy meeting, which I'll go into later. But for a quick real-world example of why it is so important to come up with a brand strategy is, so I had this beautiful client, and she is rebranding her business. She bought this business, and it's just not her. It's quite bland and boring, and very stuck in where it started, I guess. And she is not a bland and boring person. She's a bold, bright person, and we went through the strategy process, and in that process we realized that she wants to be bold and different and wants to kind of get out of where she's been with the businesses and to kind of expand throughout New Zealand and to possibly sell products throughout supermarkets. And to do this, she wanted to create a really bold brand identity that was, still had elements of where it was rooted, where it started, but really went beyond that. So that was our strategy. We answered the questions. We had a 4-hour strategy meeting. I created a strategy document. We were all good to go. I then created the branding. I do the one concept method, which I'll go into a little bit later. And it was great. We made a few tweaks. She was happy with it. And then she said, I'm going to send it to my friend and see what my friend thinks. So away, she sent it to her friend, and her friend came back to her and said, oh, is it too bold? Is it too different to where you're at? Like, is it too much? And then she came back to me and was like, oh, have we created something that is too big and bold and too much? And I said, well, did you send her the strategy as well to read? And she hadn't. So she sent her friend the strategy, and her friend had a look over the strategy and was like, oh, I get it now. I get where you're going. And so a lot of the time, the strategy is there for us to understand the business, for the client to understand the business, but also so that we can refer back to it when we make big, bold decisions. Because sometimes with clients, they really want to do something awesome, and then they get scared. So it's just a really nice thing to have this document that outlines that. So as I mentioned, these are some of my strategy questions. They are just a few of what is in my client portal, where the clients can go through and answer these. I do also say in the client portal that you don't have to answer the questions, because I also understand sometimes It's really hard to write things out. I find it quite hard. And we do go over all of these questions and more in the strategy meeting that we have after these are answered. So just a few is describe your business and what it does in one simple sentence. Is there a unique story behind the name of the business? What are your business goals? What are your brand values? Who is your ideal audience, customer that you'll be selling your products and services to? Why would your customer specifically pick your service or product over their competitor? What makes you unique? And that is such a good one because it's so fun to look into that. What makes you unique? Who are your top 3 competitors? What vision do you have for your brand identity? What words would you choose to describe your desired vibe and look? And are there any icons or images that you connected to that want you to be included within your brand? So these are some questions. Once they answer them, I'll just go to my process and then we can kind of see. So we start with a discovery call, get to know the client, figure things out, set them up on Notion. In Notion, they have everything is in there. It's a really great platform. I put all of my client contracts, invoices, timelines, even like a little notes section where they can just write random ideas, or I can write random ideas that we can come back to. And I also upload all of my presentations, and this is where we have all of our feedback. So nothing gets lost in emails. It is all in one place that we can refer back to, and essentially we live in during the portion of the branding. So I set that up, which is where the questions are. We have a strategy meeting, which is usually about 4 hours long. We either have it here at my home studio or at their place of work, or somewhere like the library, somewhere where we can get a coffee and some food. Always very important to make it fun and make it an enjoyable experience where we just go through everything to do with their business, really flesh it out. This is really great for clients because they often don't have time to do this themselves. So it's really nice for them to have the opportunity to flesh out what they actually want in their business. So after we do that, I do the one concept method. This is something that I really haven't been doing for too long, but I think has a lot of value. It's where I used to present multiple logo concepts to clients and then they could kind of pick and choose. Now I just present one concept, a fully formed concept with so much meaning behind it, every little detail explained. Also with mock-ups of how it can look in certain places, because clients like to see that. They need to be able to understand how it's going to look. So I present them with this. Now, this doesn't mean that they have to choose that concept. Although, to be fair, I've never actually had a client say no to the concept built within this, because we have such a strong strategy that it's usually pretty bang on. But we do make tweaks backwards and forwards, maybe tweaking some like typography, some colors, some little bits and pieces. But we do all those little revisions, and then I supply the final branding guideline with all the things. This is my process for the package that I offer, which is my whole kind of package, which is strategy, branding, a photo shoot, and website. But obviously, if you're not a photographer, you don't have to offer the photo shoot part. I like to also do photography for my clients because I love photography, and I feel like it connects the brand identity to social media and the website and where the images are going to be used. But if you're not a photographer, I would definitely recommend that in your visual identity, you put photography inspiration recommendations so that they can send them over to the photographer, just to make sure everything's all flows. Sorry, I use my hands a lot. What is that? I need to. So after we've done the photo shoot, it's the website strategy communication. We will have a strategy meeting about the website, discuss the sitemap, all of those kind of things, homepage presentation. Once that's all ticked off, website pages presentations, kind of get them all going. Once we're all good with that, I'll do quality assurance, which is where I just go through and make sure all of the links and buttons and everything is working. Make sure all the screens are like it's all can be shown properly on all the screens. Then amazing thing about Squarespace is it is so easy for clients to use. So I will do a how to use website meeting, transfer the setup, transfer domains, all that stuff, and then the website will go live. So it's a bit of a basic breakdown. But so for creating a cohesive visual language, obviously we all know that the logo is important, but it is just the start of the whole brand. We need to be building out brand guidelines that include multiple different logos, marks, and everything to be able to be used across all different platforms. We need to be including typography, colors, spacing, photography styles. It's all of those things that we include that make the brand really come together and become a brand and not just a logo. So why brand consistency matters is it matters because we don't want to be seeing a logo somewhere. Like, for example, if you see a restaurant's social media and you recognize it and you see the logo and the tone of voice and everything like that, and then you're walking past the building, you go, oh, I saw that on social media. You're connecting it. It's the same. And then you go to their website and it looks the same as their social media and it sounds the same as their social media. And then, you see a poster for them somewhere or a billboard and it's all, you're like, oh, I saw them on social media and I know where the building is. And everything has to relate, has to connect for it to kind of just live in the back of our minds so that if next week my friend says, hey, where should we go for lunch? I go, oh, let's go to this place because I've seen so many different touch points and all of those touch points are connected. They're all the same. They're all very seamless. And that's why it sticks in your brain because it's like consistent. It builds trust and recognition and creates a cohesive experience. And obviously reduces confusion with, it's very confusing if the social media doesn't look anything like the website, that doesn't look anything like the print advertising. We want it to all look the same, feel the same, because we're very basic people and we need to know, we need it all to just look the same. So how do we then translate our brand into website design? Now, there are common disconnects often between branding and websites. And a lot of the time, this happens when the logo and branding is being created by one designer and the website is being created by another. Or, I've found that sometimes they're like, oh, we'll get you to do the branding, but my sister's best friend's cousin can just make the website for us. And then what I find is extremely frustrating is I've spent so much time creating these beautiful brand guidelines that have this real depth and meaning, and the website looks nothing like the branding, and it's very frustrating and it's very confusing for clients. And so it's really nice when we as designers can take that brand guidelines and translate it to websites, because we are the ones who understand the brand. We're the ones who created these brand guidelines. It just makes sense for us to be creating the website. So we can use these brand guidelines that we've created that have already been signed off by the client to inform web layout and messaging and everything like that. So Squarespace supports the cohesive design experience, because the first thing I do when creating a website in Squarespace is I go in and I make sure all of my typography is the same as my brand guidelines. And I also make sure all of my colors are, and the logos and stuff are all imported. So it's all put into the back of this website before we even start the designing process. For an example, I just finished doing some branding for a beautiful client over in Australia, and she's an online store, but we don't want it to feel just like a normal online store. We want her website to feel, you know, those shops that you walk into and the shopkeepers know your names, and it's all very relaxing, and you can sit down and have a coffee or a drink, and you go there for the experience as well as being able to purchase something. And we want the website to look and feel like that. It's not just an e-commerce store. It's going to be the home of just the home of her brand, especially because she doesn't want to do too much social media. So really important for us to be able to create this space that is more than an e-commerce store, more than a basic website. We really want to dive deep into how users are going to feel when they're on the website. And I feel like I'm the perfect person to create this website for her because I've done her brand strategy and her brand guidelines and everything. So I know the brand very deeply and would be able to take that concept further into the digital space. So why Squarespace is the perfect platform? Mainly it's so designer friendly. I've tried other platforms before, and Squarespace is always my favorite. The customization, just the way that we can easily, there's so much you can do without code, but when you want to fully customize something and add code, finding code is very easy. You can use if you're a Squarespace Circle member, you can always just jump in there and ask, oh, how do I do this? Or can I add this? And someone always has the answer. Or you can always find the answer somewhere. And I love that about Squarespace. It is also great for client empowerment, for handover. I have a lot of clients who own restaurants, and they want to know that they can go in to the back of their website every so often and change the menu or change the pricing. They don't want to have to pay me monthly to manage their website, and they don't want to have to pay me per hour to make these small changes for them. And I don't want to be doing that either. I want them to feel empowered. They can go in without messing anything up, change the prices, do whatever they have to do in there to feel like they have control over their website. I think gone are the days where designers and agencies have control over somebody's website and really hold it over their heads. I think it's really nice for the client to own the website and be able to get into the back end of it whenever they want. That doesn't mean that they're going to want to do it. I have a couple of clients who don't want to do it, and they will pay me to make the changes. But most of my clients, once I go through like an hour-long, back end presentation for them, they completely understand it and want to do it themselves. So I guess that leads into combining brand and website into into a smooth client package. I think I talk about that in my next slide. No, I don't. Okay. So it's really, I think it's just so nice to be able to say to a client, we can do this whole thing together. Gone are the days where you hire one freelancer to do the branding and another to do the website, and then the branding freelancer has to communicate with the website person, then has to communicate with the client again. It's all very confusing. A lot of the time the client is starting a new business, or they're already in the business and they're really busy and they don't want that extra communication. So we can take that off their hands by saying, I already know your business, your strategy. I'll do the website. I've already got all the files. I've already got all the logos. I've already got the photography, or I'll do the photography. It makes sense for me to build the website as well. So when you're speaking to your client and you're trying to sell it in that way, it's a great option to sell it, that it's going to be much easier communication for them. Nothing's going to get lost in translation. And I do believe that agencies obviously have they have this offering as well, but some small to medium businesses would prefer the more personal option of a freelancer. And also, when you're going to an agency, you're not actually normally speaking to the designer who is doing the work. You're often speaking to the client manager, and then client manager person, and then they're speaking to maybe the head designer, who then gives it to the junior designer, who then does the work and then hands it back to the head designer, who then communicates with the client manager, who then communicates with the client, and so on. So there's also a disconnect between communication a lot of the time there as well. Whether this way the client is only speaking to, in my case, they're only speaking to me. I'm doing the work. I get the feedback straight to me. If I have any questions, I'm the one asking them the questions and then doing the work. So it just makes the client's life quite a lot easier, and you end up building really cool relationships with your clients. I know I have a lot of clients who have now turned into friends because we've worked together throughout the whole kind of process. So this was an example of how much you can customize a Squarespace website like without code. This is for the Sumner Post Office. They are a new restaurant in Sumner. So if you're in Aotearoa, I recommend you go there. Anyway, we wanted the landing page, the homepage, to look like a postcard. And the cool thing about Squarespace is the landing page, you can kind of toggle off if you want the navigation to be shown or not, and all that stuff. So I think on this page, I did custom code the border and the vertical line, but everything else was kind of just easily being able to move around. Once you click into the actual website itself, it does have the top navigation, as you can see in one of the images there. But we just wanted it to look quite different when you landed on the website to other websites. And that's the cool thing about Squarespace. Sometimes people think, oh, it's just like templated design. It's not. I start all of my designs completely fresh, no template, no nothing. And you can build whatever you want. It's so easy. It's so easy. So, so how you can sell the full service package is pitch to your clients the benefits of a one-stop approach. Pitch to them the benefits of only communicating with you, having you go through the whole process with them. It cuts out so much communication for them. It saves so much time for everybody. So I like to bundle my packages together. I have a package that is brand strategy, branding, website, and photography. That's my main package that people like. I also offer payment plans for that, and a lot of small and medium businesses like that, they can pay it off over 6 months. So they're not putting a big amount of money in at the start because that's quite scary. So that works well for me. I always offer payment plans with my bigger packages. But I also have other ones, the one for like the Sumner Post Office, that was a website and a 3-month social media campaign and photography. So that was like one bundle package. I've got the other bundle package, and then I've got other services as well. But I like to just package them together. I feel like it helps to kind of, so everyone knows where they're at. And in Notion, that is where I will put all of my timelines for everything, and my to-do lists. And so everything's very structured. Once they're signed on and they've been onboarded, and we've got the invoices going out every month, it's so easy, and it's a great way to run your business, because you also know, I like to charge monthly or whatever, or like split the payments up, because then I know what's coming in every month, and it's a nice way to be able to stagger projects, especially as one person doing all of the design. I'm also a mum. I've got 2 young kids, a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old. So for me, staggering everything and making sure it all works and with other work that I'm doing is really important. We workflow, combining strategy, branding, websites, and Notion. I highly recommend looking into Notion. It's a great way for your clients to feel like everything, you can keep on top of everything with the timelines, contracts, invoices, everything is in there in one place where you can communicate freely with your clients, and it works quite good. That's me. I hope I didn't talk too fast. I hope that you came away with something good.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sarah Jane. So much information in there. It's great. I loved the idea of you were talking about creating like a cozy shopkeeping experience online. That is so nice. And also that you can do that on Squarespace so easily. So what we'll go ahead and do is we're going to get started with the Q&A. So like I said before, if you have any questions, please go ahead and drop them in the Q&A box. You can find that in the little bottom right-hand corner, the 9 dots. And I can see a few coming in now. So I'm just going to jump over. Okay. Okay. So we have, you mentioned how Squarespace is great for clients to make updates to their own website. What platforms and programs do you recommend for clients who want to kind of do their own design or social posts while staying on brand?
Okay. Yeah. I've had it before with clients where I have created their templates in Canva for them for social media. That works well for clients because they can we can create these beautiful tiles that are on brand, and they can't mess them up too much, and they have access to be able to do that. So I have done that in the past, created them for them on Canva or Figma. Actually, it's great. I love Figma, and if you've got a client who you think can handle using Figma, I would recommend that as well.
Awesome. So we've got another person who said, love. Where do you get your design inspiration from?
Oh, wow. Everywhere, really. I love art, and I love I think for me to get inspired, I need to get out into nature as well. I spend a lot of my time, I live by the beach, lots of parks around, the wetlands. So if I'm ever feeling like I'm in a rut and I can't kind of figure things out creatively, I will go out into nature, which is so cheesy to say. And I think it's really important as well to take space from what you're doing. I find if I'm designing something, I'll take space from it. But if I'm really into it, I do this thing, and I don't know if it would work for everybody, because I don't know if it's just the way my brain works, but if I'm really in the zone for something, I'll put like a mindless TV show like Big Brother on in the background. Kind of takes that part of my brain away that's like, oh, we should go do this and do that. And it just like kind of keeps that entertained while I really hone in on a project. So I don't know if that's completely off task, but that's what I do.
I mean, we've all got our own little strategies, don't we? And especially stepping away is key sometimes too. You can just get locked in the little circle.
Yeah, need to step away. And also having a beautiful space that makes me so inspired. And I love just random little things, like my little bluey gnome behind me, and like I just love things. So working in a space with lots of natural light, beautiful things around me, makes me happy and inspired.
Nice. All right, let's see. I know you talked briefly about how you used to use multiple design versions, and now you've kind of come back down to just using one. Do you want to talk about how the efficiency of that, like how are you spending the same amount of time as you were just all focused now on one design versus across the 4? How have you found that transition, and how's that been for you?
Well, I love it so much more. I feel like I'm creating brands now with so much more meaning and feeling. Time-wise, obviously, I'm spending a lot more time on strategy than I was, which takes a lot of time. By the time you like read all the questions and have like a big meeting and then create a document and really understand the brand, And then when it comes to creating the actual concept, I think it's, I don't know, taking less time, because when I wasn't creating the strategy, I would send the client a whole lot of like options. And then it was just the tedious back and forth because no one really knew what was happening. The client didn't know what they wanted. It was just very, more tedious. Whereas now it's like I can really just dive deep into the meaning behind it. And I love that. So I think it's way more time efficient. Yeah.
And then I guess, you have the one concept. How do you find, and then you do have like the back and forth, right, to kind of finesse that?
Yeah, definitely. I'm not just saying to a client, oh yeah, here you go, this is it.
Yeah. Do you find it's still like difficult sometimes to get them to commit to, being like, okay, we're good?
Yeah. Look, I honestly, since doing the one concept method, have never had anybody completely change the concept.
That's great.
But we have done obviously small tweaks, and I don't limit those tweaks. I don't say like this amount of refinement, and I also don't tell them that I tell them like, if you don't like the concept, like I will come up with another concept. I'm not opposed to that. I'm not trapping you in this concept. I just think there's little tweaks back and forth, but they're never big ones.
And then I guess moving on to, once you do that client handover and you're handing over the website, how do you kind of make sure that the design integrity stays the same, but also, not feeling tied down to however many questions are coming at you? Have you found that that's so far been pretty seamless with that transition, or are you finding clients need a bit more hand holding?
Yeah, it depends the kind of client and the age of the client, for sure. Look, I've obviously had trouble sometimes where I've handed the website over and they've really messed it up. But I always say to them, like, if you really mess something up, I can jump in and fix it for you. But a lot of the time when I'm taking them through the back end of the website, I'm saying, this is the thing that you can change. Don't change anything else. You jump to the menu and change the pricing or whatever the menu is. And I always try and make sure that the design is pretty locked in, that it's really hard to mess up. But it's like some clients don't want to. Like, I've got a client, he's a bit older and he doesn't want to be changing the prices on the website. So he's happy to pay for me to do it, and I'm happy to do it. But I do have a lot of clients who they want to be able to do it themselves. It's just a change, and they want to be able to do it, and they can do it because it's so easy. Once the website's designed, it's so easy.
Yeah, it's definitely nice to be able to have that flexibility where you can just hand it off and know, for the most part, that they're going to be comfortable getting into the back end to like do what they need to do.
Yeah. Especially after like an hour-long meeting, like a lot of the time they're like, okay, that's perfect. Yeah.
And then just talking a little bit about the Squarespace Circle member. Can you share a little bit, like, how have you used that? What is it, how are you going about using that, and what have you found to be the most valuable part about being a member?
So I mainly just use the forums. I often have an idea that I want to do, and it requires coding, and I jump in there and either somebody's already asked the same question and I just get the answer, or I ask questions, somebody has an answer. So it's a really supportive place. People tend to just want to help other people. And they say most questions have already been asked and answered. So it's a very quick way of kind of figuring things out. And
you're not having to like reinvent the wheel or anything.
Yeah. But then when I do have more complicated questions, there's always someone who knows something that I don't. Yeah.
That's cool. Wonderful. Well, if there's any other questions, go ahead and pop them through. Let's see what we've got. Oh, we've had amazing prezzo. Okay. Do clients request video moving image content?
Video moving image, like as in like having videos on their websites?
I'm guessing possibly, maybe a bit of both.
Yeah. So people do often request having like images, videos embedded into their websites, which is super easy to do with Squarespace. And then when it comes to adding animations, people do ask for that too, and I can offer that as well. I can do like animations as they scroll and stuff. And you say there's always a way with Squarespace. Even if you think there's not a way to do it, there's always a way. You just have to figure it out, ask the right people. Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, so there's a few more coming through. So do clients come to you wanting to work only with you, or do you find yourself kind of pitching against other designers and agencies, and how do you handle that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, sometimes they come only wanting to work with me, especially if it's through like a recommendation. A lot of my work comes through word of mouth, just with the people I've worked with. If it comes through recommendation or they've followed me on Instagram for a while or something like that, often they'll come to me and just want to work with me. But I've got a client at the moment that I'm pitching for. It's a big company in Australia, and they're talking to agencies and other freelancers as well. And I'm pitching against those people. And so, yeah, in that situation, it takes a lot of time, obviously. Like, I mean, I had like an hour-long meeting with them yesterday. I've sent them presentations. It's a big process. So, yeah, sometimes it's easy to get a client because when you've networked a lot and you've got client recognition and stuff, you skip that middle part. But when you don't, when it's something random, somebody's just finds you, then you have to go through that whole kind of big process. So I find it's a big mixture of both.
Okay. Someone else said, this was so helpful. Thank you. Do you have any tips for someone just starting their Squarespace web journey?
Just have a play with it, honestly. It's just a really fun tool to be able to just play around. And I don't know, I found actually I learned the most about Squarespace when I was designing Squarespace sites for a company in Australia. They're an interior design company. They would do these amazing builds, usually in hospo, and then they would send me the wireframe and get me to build it on Squarespace, which is terrifying because they know what they want, and I'm just the builder at that point. And this was back when I was first starting in Squarespace. And I was terrified every time a wireframe came through, and I was like, I don't know how to do that. That's not something I would have offered a client because I genuinely don't know how to do it. And it was the best experience because I learned so much because I just had to do it. I just had to figure it out. So don't just stay in what you know. Really explore, at the moment I'm working on a website where the client, they're an architecture firm. They know certain things that they want that are really hard for me to do, but I'm figuring it out and I'm learning so much. So that's just it. Just go in there, say yes to the job, and figure it out later.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, this one says, thanks for the presentation, Sarah Jane. Creating beautiful websites is one thing, but how do you find the SEO power of Squarespace? Are the built-in functions enough to kind of set and forget, or are there integrations that can help boost optimization?
I find Squarespace SEO amazing. Like, it's so good. If you go into the back and you set it properly, and you also are looking for using your keywords and all your headings and everything like that, I find it amazing. Like, if you Google, and I'm pretty sure it's still the case because it has been for the last few years, if you Google Christchurch food photographer, I am constantly number one. And I am not the best food photographer in Christchurch. I mean, maybe I am. I don't know. But it's because I obviously am the only food photographer in Christchurch who has good SEO, and my website's built on Squarespace and it works. I've never done anything apart from, I've never run Google Ads or anything like that. It's all just been my background SEO. So yeah, I find it works well.
Cool.
Yeah.
Here's another question. It says, how much time would you typically spend on your full design and web package, and how do you approach pricing your services? I always find it hard to know what to charge.
Oh my God, it's so hard. It really depends on the client for the package. You know, one client, it could take like 10 hours to do a branding, and then one client it could take like 30 or 40 because it's just so much harder. Maybe the client's not harder, but maybe the concept's harder. Maybe you're just you don't get there as fast. Sometimes I'll spend so long just trying to really figure it out and nut it out, and there are so many concepts, and this is a really annoying answer, so sorry, but it really just depends. I don't have a set time. I also never time myself. When I first graduated, I worked for an agency, and we had to obviously time everything that we did had to be timed. And I think I'm so scarred from that. It's so scarring. Like I was just, and I just don't think design should be treated that way. I think design should be, I just do some work and then go for a walk and then do some work. So I would actually genuinely have no idea. What was the second part of that question? Sorry.
It was, oh, okay. So how much time would you typically spend on your full design and web package, and how do you approach pricing your services?
Yeah. Pricing is scary because I've found, especially in New Zealand, you'll say your price to somebody and they'll go, oh, that's so much. No, I can't do that. And then you'll say your pricing to somebody else and they'll go, oh, yes, sweet as. So again, it's just so dependent. And I find talking about money really hard. And I find talking about money really scary because every time you have a meeting and you're vibing with someone and then you have to bring up money, I just feel like they're instantly going to say, oh, that's too much. That's too much. I can't work with you. And that's a sad thought, especially if it's something that you want to do. But I think it's important to price yourself where you think you should be priced, because if I priced myself any lower, I know that I wouldn't have enough time to spend on the work, because I would have to be bringing in more work to sustain a business. So, it's just important to kind of figure out your balance, so that you can spend more time on the branding and more time on the thinking process and the strategy process, and everything.
Yeah, and it's probably, going back to the whole time thing, it's probably good to have a general idea of how long each thing takes you, so you can price appropriately for your time. But then maybe not having to get into the nitty-gritty, like you said.
I mean, I kind of tend to do, I've got my packages and then I've got an idea of how many I want to do a month, and work it out that way.
That's a good way. Yeah, cool. We've had a couple questions about Notion in terms of like what template you use and whether you're like, how you've set that up. I don't know if maybe that's something you want to share later in like a little.
Yeah, I don't have a template. It's something that I've got a template, but it wasn't like a Notion template. It was something that I kind of just developed over time. Every client I've gone, oh, I want to add this or I want to add that, and kind of just added more and more to it. So it's just like a very personal kind of, and the way everybody works so differently. The way I work is probably so different to somebody else. I'm very much a color-coded person. Everything has to be very pretty, color coordinated in a certain way. And that's how I've done my Notion. I haven't used a set template for it. I've just done it the way that I like to work.
Yeah, cool. During what part of the branding process do you bring up the pricing? Kind of going back to that pricing question. Yeah, where do you talk about it?
Well, usually like in the first meeting, like so I try not to do it in an email. And if somebody really wants it in an email, I'll send it to them in an email. But I really try to get them in person or on a phone call first, because I think it's so easy for a client for you to send somebody a price and then for them to ghost you without you being able to explain yourself. And I think a lot of clients want to work with me after they meet me, after we kind of vibe and have a chat. So I try really, really hard to get them in person, and then to put my big girl pants on and talk about prices in person, which I hate so much. I hate it, but
it does help. You can really communicate the value so much better, and then really position yourself as a value-based service rather than just like a commodity.
And I mean, I have had it where people are like, no, I don't want to jump on a call or have a meeting, just send me your price, and then we can go from there. But a lot of the time, talk first, then talk about prices, or talk first and then email the prices if you don't want to talk in person about them. Custom quote or something.
How do you incorporate like pricing plans for people that maybe get a bit of like, I don't know, flabbergasted? Like if let's say that there's a price that you put forward, and then, but have you tried offering it as a pricing plan or things like that?
Yeah. So I think I mentioned that in the presentation. I always offer pricing plans.
Nice.
Especially for the like whole package one. That's my kind of biggest package. Most people pay it off over 6 months. I always offer a pricing plan because it's the same as buying something on what's that thing, like Afterpay. It feels free. It's like, oh, it's technically free. I'm not gonna, I mean, it's a bit more than that, but it's like it doesn't feel the same. It feels a lot.
From a cash flow perspective, it's a little bit easier to handle.
Yeah. But I do have some packages where they have to do upfront like 50-50 if it's a smaller package. But I like payment plans, and I like that I can then calculate where I'm at with I use an Excel spreadsheet, which is super late, but And then I can calculate where I'm at. So I know how many clients I can book in and where I've hit what I want to hit and stuff like that. So
yeah, nice. Here's a question that says, how much photography would you usually do for a client? If some clients come to you with their own supplied photography, how do you integrate your own photography style with that supplied by the client for coherence?
Yeah. Okay, yeah. So if they've already got their photography, that's cool. If they've already got their photography, or they're like chosen photographer or photography styles. I think if the brand comes to me, where the client comes to me and we're creating a brand and they say, but these are my images, I'll create the brand knowing those in the back of my mind. And if they've already got a photographer, then I'll create the photography styles for that photographer.
Okay, cool.
As a guideline, I would hope that maybe I could do the photography, but if they're not located here and if I can't get to them, then I will always do like a bit of a guideline.
Nice. That's helpful.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think that's all the questions coming through. So we'll just jump into what's coming up next. So if you guys are based in Poneke, tomorrow night we've got our final Autumn Conversations Design and Discovery event, and we've got tickets still on sale. So if you're keen and you live in that area, come along. Next week in Tamaki Makaurau, we're going to be doing a really, really interesting seminar on AI and IP with the experts from the AJ Park Law Firm. So we're going to have 4 experts in the room to answer questions around the IP landscape and AI when it comes to your design processes. So that's going to be very interesting. And then at the end of the month, we've got our Under the Hood online webinar we're going to be talking to 2 Māori designers, Chloe Reweti and Shane Hansen. And then our next Creative Journeys webinar is coming up in July. So at the next Creative Journeys webinar, we're going to be chatting with Hannah and Nick Ippolito from Square Kicker, and they're going to be going through tactical ways that you can transform your design business and achieve more with Squarespace. So that should be a really interesting one as well. And then later in the year, we're going to be coming to, or Creative Journeys is going to be coming to Tamaki Makaurau. We're going to be learning from the team at PHQ. They've got some really cool stuff they're going to be sharing with us, so can't wait to share more about that. And then our final event for the Creative Journeys series is going to be taking place in Kirikiriroa in September. We're going to be talking to the team at Daymark, and they're going to be going through some of their brand strategy processes. So lots to come in the future, and I hope you guys are able to come along. Thanks again, everyone, for tuning in today, and thank you, Sarah Jane, for sharing your web design tips with us. It was so great to see and learn from you. And lastly, if you are new to Squarespace, you can use this QR code or use the discount code in the bottom to get 20% off your new annual subscription. So that, I believe, is all for today. I hope you will have a wonderful rest of your day, and we will see you at the next Creative Journeys webinar. All righty. Bye, everyone.